Go to the movies, yay!
We had a double feature. What did we watch, Kels?
We watched Grease and Grease 2.
Yeah, so like a week ago, Grease 2 came up on Amazon Prime, like free, and I was
Rachel
like,
was
oh.
like, oh.
I had watched that movie a lot as a kid. I assumed that we owned the movie Grease, like physically.
Obviously somebody stole it from us.
But somehow we don't. Like, it's just crazy to me.
Now we own a digital copy.
Now we own a digital copy. So, because we had planned Grease double feature. So
we're talking about both in this review, right?
We're talking about both in this review. So we're not going to do a go, wait, skip.
Well, I think we are. I would say you have to go see both of them. They're seminal like pieces of movie history, and I think that one cannot be appreciated really as much without the other. And at the end of this, I'll give you a tip on how you should watch them.
Well, I would say go see Grease, and I would say skip Grease 2, which was a surprise to me because child Rachel would have highly recommended Grease 2.
So let's talk about Grease.
Yeah.
The original Grease.
Let's talk original Grease. Oh my gosh, like I actually haven't watched that in a long time, but it's so good.
I mean, it's like it might be one of the best movies ever made. It is so amazing to me that from the very beginning, from the start, like the very start of the movie, absolutely, it like just rocks. You're like, this is amazing. This story's amazing. These people are amazing. John Travolta and
Olivia Newton-John.
John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John are amazing together. All the side characters and backup characters were amazing. The music is outstanding. It was the second highest selling album in 1978. Like, it's that good. From start to finish, a great movie, a great musical, and just tons of fun. I love it.
Yeah. It's really well done. And here's the thing, is that I find watching Grease as an adult, it's not directly edifying. Like, there's not...
I disagree.
Well, it's not... Here's what I mean by that. There's not, like, oh, here's how you live your life. This is great. Like, it's not one of those kind of movies, but it is really authentic. I mean, aside from, like, the dance and musical numbers. Like, it just... Okay, so let's talk about it. Basically, when we watch Grease as adults, it's like, oh, you might just quickly be like, is this movie just promoting that you should just, like, change yourself to get, like, the love of another person? Like, it doesn't seem great, and it's especially focused on sexuality. Like, Sandy was not sexual enough, and then she was, and she got Danny. Like, you might think that, but I'm not quite sure. I think it's oversimplified. Do you want me to go on and explain?
No.
Okay.
I think that the first Grease is a great movie, and I think that if you're looking for edification from great art, that's its own reward. But if you're looking for edification, that this movie illustrates, like, love. Sandy loved Danny, and Danny loved Sandy, and while they did not love each other perfectly, they both loved each other enough to try to love the other person. And I think that is very important.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, that you can, if you think about it just a little bit longer, like you see, and I especially see in Danny, who was himself over the summer when he first met Sandy, but then got back and he was too worried about what other people thought of him and keeping, like, this act together to be authentic, to be genuine, to be, and he was going to lose out on, allegedly, the love of his life. I mean, these kids are in high school, right?
I'll tell you what's completely unrealistic about the movie. Is at the end of the movie, they fly off in that. That's what he called it. Can we talk about how I watched this movie like a bazillion times as a child, and then as an adult I watched it, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff in this movie that I did not understand when I was a child.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely, like, a lot of...
if you're like a kid, your brain will just skip over stuff.
I felt like it also dealt with things, and it showed the character, not at, like, the, they hadn't achieved enlightenment. But, like, just right where they were. So, like, when you get Rizzo's solo,
yeah,
some of the stuff she says in that song, I wouldn't teach to, like, my nieces.
But that was true to her.
But it was true to her in the moment. I guess that's what I mean by this movie. There is something, like, edifying about that all the characters were in that moment, like, true to who they were, and I can respect that. Like, you know, I don't need every character by the end of the movie to have hit like a phase of enlightenment.
My favorite thing about the Grease trilogy, and I'll tell you why I call it a trilogy in a second, is this. The second Grease movie is the single most compelling evidence I've ever seen of alien life existing. And here's why. It's almost as if aliens came and created Grease 2, and they studied the first Grease and our reaction to it as human beings, and tried to make a movie based on that reaction. And they made this movie and like, this must be what they like.
Their assumptions like
these things.
Why humans liked the first Grease so much.
Because the second movie, or the first movie, is just immediately amazing. Right from the beginning, it's like, this movie's amazing.
Yeah.
This is starkly opposite. This movie's terrible right
from
at the beginning.
Get-go.
And it never ceases to be terrible. And yet, it tries to call back to the original Grease multiple horrible times, and it fails miserably. At the same time, it's such a monumental failure of a movie, and frankly, I think that Michelle Pfeiffer's performance is great in it. But because of those things, it's like hard to look away from in a way. You're just like, I can't. Even some of the songs that are crappy are catchy. There's some not good music, but it's catchy.
That we've started that are bad, where we've just said, you know what? We're going to cut our losses. We're stopping the movie right now. We're going to move on to something else in our evening. This wasn't like, you can watch this whole movie, but the whole time you're going to be like, man, this is bad.
Especially, and I wouldn't be surprised if I saw it again in my life. I've seen it 3 or 4 times now. Now listen, here's why I call it a trilogy. If you're going to watch the Grease movies, definitely do it this way. Grease 1, Grease 2, and then Grease 1 again to get the stink off your eyes from Grease 2, because it's that bad. Then you would have the trilogy, right, of the movies.
Here's an interesting thing, is that I had memories of Grease 2 from my childhood. Great. And my memories, even right now, after I just saw Grease 2, even right now, I'm like, man, that memory of Michelle Pfeiffer doing her Cool Rider solo was so much better. It's so much better in my head.
Yeah.
And so whatever I saw as a child, I just created, because when I watched the Cool Rider thing last night, I was like, man, the how this looks, like everything, I was like, it's not what's in my head. My brain made that better. But the movie was bad. It wasn't good. And I actually thought that it was. We've watched other movies from our childhood. We watched Masters of the Universe, and just to show you, it's a good movie.
Now, do you remember the time I showed you Highlander though?
Yes.
Not a good movie. What about this? I think this illustrates it most often. We once got in an argument about which was better, the Munsters or the Addams Family, because you grew up watching the Munsters.
Yeah.
I grew up watching the Addams Family. We each picked one. We both decided to watch one episode of each together to prove the other wrong. We were both wrong. They're both terrible.
Yeah, they're both terrible. Gosh.
Not as terrible as Grease 2, though.
Yeah, Grease 2, just the characters are super one-dimensional. They made up things that didn't make sense, like the pink ladies were now property of the T-Birds. We were like, where did that come from?
Again, it's like aliens were like, this must be what happened.
Michelle Pfeiffer's character, was consumed with, having this, Cool Rider, but it was all about the way he looked. You know, Danny had this, whole change.
Yeah.
He had a character arc. And so did Sandy. Sandy had a character arc where she was more free to, but, she just was like, I just want a hot guy.
On a motorcycle.
On a motorcycle.
And he's like, okay.
He's like, now I'm that hot guy. And now we're, nothing, it was just completely flat. It was just really over-sexualized. There was the whole song about reproduction.
It's like aliens watched the first Grease movie and were like, oh, they like this. Let's put more of this in.
Yeah, and the songs were just put in. It almost seemed at random. We were like, why is there a song here? Why, a song should, beef up what's already there because it's important. But instead, the song about bowling?
They spent twice as much money making Grease 2 as they did Grease 1. And that just blows my mind. How is Grease 1 look, sound, and is so much better than Grease 2? It is just insane to me. Also, Can we talk about the sad situation of Frenchie and also the Scarface guy? They were both in Grease 1, and then had to come back and be in Grease 2. And what's Craterface's deal? He's the leader of this one gang in Grease 1. A couple years later on the timeline, he's the leader of an entirely different cult gang, the
Well, he's a
Scorpion
car gang
something.
and then a
And they got
motorcycle gang.
motorcycle gang, and like, how old is he? He looks like a good 20 years older than the kids in the second Grease movie. And
I guess
I'm
he's
like,
a townie.
is he a townie? It didn't. It's just weird. It's a weird thing.
It's not. It's just not good. So, but we
I think
are
you should watch both of them together.
Reassured. Like it just strengthened in the idea that Grease is a fantastic musical.
And you think that when you see
every single song
you're like,
is
this is
good.
Great. But you don't know it's great until you see Grease 2. Then you're like, oh yeah. Dude, I think with Grease 2, again, I thought Michelle Pfeiffer was good in it. It's terrible, especially if you compare it to Grease 1. On its own, it's still terrible, but maybe not as terrible. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you're like, I compared it earlier to the Beatles and the Monkees, except, like, it's not even the Monkees.
No.
The Monkees were actually pretty good. It's
really
like if there was, like, a second or third level here of Monkey that was copying a Monkey that was copying the Monkees that was trying to copy.
What's like a bad Beatles cover band?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Something. It's not great, but it is, like, you can't
How dare
stop watching
you even
it.
bring the Monkees into this comparison you just made?
I said, you know what I said, woman. You were there both times.
There's our thoughts on Grease. Hope you enjoyed.